Welcome to the Mission Driven Podcast, the show designed to empower, educate, and encourage you to stay focused and committed to your mission. I'm your host, AC Cristales. Let's get ready to roll. Welcome back to Mission Driven with AC Cristales. I hope you guys have had a great 2020 so far, and I hope that you've enjoyed the first two podcasts of 2020. The first one was The Future Is Yours. The second one was the interview with Josh Tovar, principal at Socorro High School in El Paso, Texas. For this week, I have another interview with Dr. Adam Saenz. Guys, you're going to enjoy this interview. So here we go. I don't want to waste more time. Enjoy. Welcome to the Mission Driven Podcast with AC Cristales. Today, I have the honor of interviewing author of the best-selling book, The Power of a Teacher, and also the developer of the Educator Assessment of Social and Emotional Learning, which is a measure of personality and emotional intelligence that is central to the work and curriculum associated with his new book, The EQ Intervention, Shaping a Self-Aware Generation Through Social and Emotional Learning. He currently serves as the clinical director of the Oakwood Collaborative, the counseling and assessment clinic he founded in 2003. Without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Dr. Adam Saenz. All right. There's a little good intro, man. How's it going?
Good. You doing all right today?
Yes, sir. I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good.
All right. So I want to do something before we get into the meat of the interview. So kind of just to break the ice a little bit, I want to go ahead and ask you 30 seconds worth of questions, right? Just answer the questions, and when the timer goes off, we'll go ahead and stop. All right. Just to kind of, like I said, just to break the ice a little bit. So let me go ahead and set up the timer, 30 seconds. And here it goes. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Favorite movie?
Oh, crap. Favorite movie? I can't say. I don't know.
Okay. Favorite sports team?
Spurs.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
One place you want to travel to?
I'd like to go back to England.
Okay. Best concert you've ever been to?
Probably Kiss when I was 13.
Okay, very good. You know what's funny? Okay, let me go ahead and stop the timer real quick. So I did an interview yesterday with the principal from El Paso, Texas, and he also said Kiss too. So Kiss must put on a rocking concert, man.
Oh, they did, yeah, man.
Very good, man. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, so let's go ahead and just get started. Go ahead and just tell the listeners a little bit about your family, your education, your background.
Okay. Well, let's see. I grew up in the Valley down in South Texas, and a single parent family, and got into a lot of trouble. And when I was 12, my mom, she knew something needed to change. I got arrested for possession, and things just didn't look good for me. So she gave up custody, and I went to live with a family in Katy, Texas, several hundred miles away from where I grew up, and I did pretty well when I was at Katy. I had some really amazing teachers that took me under their wing and made sure that I had everything I needed to be successful. So I graduated from high school, Katy High School, in the 80s. But after I graduated from high school, that's when the bottom fell out. I was on my own, struggling to make it. I was working as a dishwasher, and I just didn't really have much. I didn't have family. I didn't have money. I didn't have a place to live, really. I was sleeping on the floor of somebody's garage apartment, and that was probably the low point for me. I was using drugs again. I was struggling with mental illness, depression, and anxiety, and I found a couple of letters that two of my teachers wrote to me at Katy High School my senior year that expressed a lot of confidence in me. And those letters really were the beginning of a series of changes for me. I took to heart what they said. They expressed hope for my future. And I just stepped out, and I thought, man, if these two ladies could believe in me, maybe there's something there. And so I signed up for one class at UTSA, University of Texas at San Antonio.
Okay.
I thought, there's no way I'm going to pass it. I was surprised that they even let me take it. But I took it and I passed it. And so then I thought, well, maybe I'll take another class.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took one that spring and I passed it. And I kept going back, and then just before I turned 27 years old, I graduated with my undergraduate degree in English. And by then I started to rethink who I was. And I could see myself as more than just a troubled kid from the valley. I could see myself as having potential and maybe being something in life. And I love school. And so I stayed and got my master's degree and then eventually got my PhD in psychology. Now I work as a psychologist, licensed psychologist, and a licensed specialist in school psychology. Work in schools. I have a clinic here in Bryan College Station, and I work with Texas A&M University as well. So I do a lot of things as a psychologist. But that was it. I'm a kid that grew up in a home that you wouldn't expect a lot of academic achievement from, but I had teachers that changed the world for me. So
that's awesome. So can you recall, some of the things that were said in that letter? And I know there were personal letters to you, but I'm intrigued. What really stood out to you from those letters?
Well, what stood out to me was that they were a sharp contrast to the messages that I had internalized. So what I mean by that is, I had always grown up hearing, you're a troubled kid, you're never going to amount to much, kids like you never make it. And I had embraced that identity for myself. I just thought I'm a loser and I'm never going to make it. But those teachers, their letters said, you're amazing, you're talented, you're intelligent, you have potential. We expect to hear great things. And it was just such a sharp contrast to the message that I had received growing up, that those two things were at odds. They were fighting with each other. Mm-hmm. And it forced me to a fork in the road. Either those women were right or I was right.
I like that. Very
good. And I chose to give myself permission, not even to believe that they were right, but just to be open to the possibility that maybe they were right,
Yeah, for sure.
And so I said, well, maybe they're right. Let me take one college course. And when I fail that, then I can prove they were wrong and I was right, Mm-hmm. But I passed the course, and I thought, oh man, I don't know, man, maybe let me take another one,
Well,
so I took another course. And, the rest is history.
What course was it? I'm just curious. I teach sociology at a community college, so I was just like, what course was it?
It was English. It was Introduction to English, and they were both English teachers,
Okay.
And I thought, this is cool because English was always my favorite subject in high school. And I thought, man, if I have any hope of passing a college course, it's got to be English because I love it, And I ended up getting my undergraduate degree in English because of those teachers and my love for the subject.
That's awesome. And so I was just thinking about in terms of, the things that they were saying to you, right? So again, I teach sociology, and one of the things that we talk about in terms of just, actualization of self, right? Just becoming who you are, right, and your self-image or your self-concept. So what I thought about as you were talking about was Cooley's looking glass self-theory, right? So where you use others as mirrors, right? So there you had these teachers telling you, hey, Adam, this is what I see in you. And even if you don't see it in yourself, this is what I see in you. And I like what you said. It was up to you to determine, okay, what am I going to believe? Because I have this other mirror, right? I have my family telling me this. I have whoever else telling me this, but yet I have these two teachers telling me this. So that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It boils down to us as individuals deciding which mirror we're going to look at,
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. So the title of this podcast is the Mission Driven Podcast, and the reason why I titled it that is because I believe that we all have a God-given mission. We all have a God-given purpose. So in terms of your life's mission, how does that align to the work that you do as a psychologist and as a speaker and everything else that you do? Yeah.
Well, my life's mission is to empower other individuals with emotional intelligence. That's essentially what psychologists do. When I think back to my childhood, my problem wasn't drugs, although I did drugs. My problem wasn't that I was an academic failure, although I was failing academically. my core problem was that I had thoughts and feelings that I didn't know what to do with. And I used drugs to escape those thoughts and feelings. And those thoughts and feelings kept me from reaching my academic potential. But that was the core problem, was what I was thinking and feeling and not knowing how to regulate it.
Okay.
Or in other words, a lack of emotional intelligence. Looking back, I thought, I mean, as tough as those years were, it wouldn't have taken much to get me on the right track early on. If I'd have just had an adult that could have modeled. And, back when I was a kid, you didn't go to counselors. You didn't tell anybody that you had depression
Exactly.
or, I mean, there was so much stigma. I mean, there still is, but back then, man, never, never,
For
never.
sure.
And even if you did, it's like, well, so what are you going to do about it? It's like, it's not like you have money for a therapist, right? And if you did have money for a therapist, you couldn't find one,
Exactly.
So anyway, all of that, I look back to my childhood, and my problem was I just didn't have anybody teach me how to understand my thoughts and control them, and how to understand my emotions and how to control them. So that's what I do now as an adult is I work with kids, I work with adults, I work with athletes, executives, teachers, educators, training them to understand themselves, to regulate themselves, and to find peak performance in whatever they're doing.
That's awesome, man. And also, there's that cultural aspect as well, right? Because you talk about, okay, even if we do have, mental issues and we need counseling, if we come from low socioeconomic homes, right? Or we come from homes where, it's kind of like, okay, you're not supposed to, you're a man, right? You're a Latino male. You're not supposed to act that way.
Yeah.
Or I remember, this is a quick, funny story. I remember I got hurt playing football my 7th grade year. And no lie, my mom was like, well, we don't have any money, so I don't know what you're going to do. Here's some vapor rub. There you go, like rub it on your elbow, man. Because, I mean, hey, there's no money. So think about it in terms of, you're having these mental, images. You're struggling with your mentality. You're struggling with image, everything that adolescents struggle with, right?
Yeah.
And, hey, what are we going to do? Sorry.
And the thing about it is, looking back, I remember getting kicked out of school because we didn't even have money for me to get a haircut.
Okay.
And I got too long and I violated the dress code, so they kicked me out, but I couldn't afford a haircut, So if you can't afford a haircut, man, you damn sure can't afford counseling.
That's right. That's right. Very good, man. So I want to talk a little bit about, let me pull up the question, talk a little bit about your book. So what inspired you to write your new book, The EQ Intervention, Shaping a Self-Aware Generation Through Social and Emotional Learning?
Well, it's, I worked in schools, I've been in schools since the late 90s, and the way that we have been taught to work with students is through what's called, I'm sure you're familiar with this, behavioral psychology. Mm-hmm. And that is essentially, you find all the carrots that you can find to motivate behaviors, and you find all the sticks you can find, right? So you appeal to the student's sense of pleasure and pain. And you shape their behavior. And that's basically what we use in schools. And it worked 50 years ago, mm-hmm. right? This thing about, I'm going to send you to the office. Oh, no, miss, don't, please don't, right? I mean, back then it worked, when in 1953, 1954.
Yeah.
Or I'll reward you and I'll give you a sticker on your sticker chart. Oh, okay, great, miss, thank you,
Yeah.
But man, are you kidding me? The kids now, they don't care about sticker charts. They don't send me to the office. Like one kid told me, expel me, man. Last time y'all expelled me, my mom picked me up. I got to go to McDonald's. I got ice cream. I got to go home and watch cartoons. So it was a paid vacation, man. Go for it, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is to say that the what worked even 20 years ago isn't working anymore. Mm-hmm. So the question is, well, what works now? It's relationships. We're beginning to understand that human relationships are at the core of learning, and emotional intelligence is at the core of relationships. So the book is about that. It's about saying, look, let's keep the sticks, let's keep the carrots, let's keep the behavioral psychology. I'm not saying we need to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying we need more tools in the toolbox, and emotional intelligence or social emotional learning is that tool.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So in terms of you always talk about, I remember I read this article. So it was this writer, and he was talking about, they asked him a question, whenever you hit a writer's block, why do you think that's the case? And he's like, well, because I haven't done enough research. I haven't read enough, because the best writers are readers, right? So what inspired you? Not what inspired, I've already asked that. I'm sorry. What books, articles, or research studies influenced you the most for this book?
Um, a big major work would be John Goleman wrote a book in the 90s on emotional intelligence. And that was really the first book that brought the idea of emotional intelligence to the forefront back in the 90s. And then there's been a lot of really compelling research done by this organization called the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So CASEL, CASEL.
Okay.
And they're out of Chicago, I believe. And they've done, and this work goes back to the Yale Child Studies Center back in the 60s, looking at this idea of when we build relationships with students and empower them with skills, emotional skills, does it work? And the data overwhelmingly show that absolutely it impacts their behavior, but most importantly, they learn better. Kids who are more emotionally intelligent are better learners. So yeah, I would say those are some, John Goleman's work back in the 90s, and then all of the work that's come out of the collaborative of academic, social, emotional learning. Just compelling research that tells us this is a good thing to do.
Okay. I like what you just said right now about, a student being emotional intelligent. So the more emotional intelligent he or she is, the more better they perform academically and just behavior wise. So would you mind just quickly explaining to the listener what emotional intelligence looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Emotional intelligence is different than cognitive intelligence. So IQ is, like you take a test and it gives you a number. 100 is an average score on an IQ test. It's about 70% of the population is going to score between 90 and 110, right? And on these standardized tests. And IQ is fairly stable over time. You're either below average, or above average, and that's pretty consistent. But emotional intelligence can vary. You can score higher and higher and higher in your abilities. It's a skill, basically. So what it is, there are 5 core components to emotional intelligence. Number 1 is self-awareness, and that is, what am I thinking and what am I feeling? The second part is self-regulation. Once I figure out what I'm thinking and feeling, how do I control it and contain it appropriately and express it appropriately? Then the third one is empathy, and that is, what are you thinking and feeling? How can I tell what you're thinking and feeling based on what your face looks like and the words that you're using and how your words sound to me? Then the fourth thing is, how can I connect with you through social skills, right? And the last thing is effective decision making. So the way that works across the board is, let me be aware of myself. Let me be aware of my thoughts and my feelings, and let me control it so that I can be centered. Once I'm centered, then I can have empathy for you, and I can know what you're thinking and feeling. And once I know what you're thinking and feeling, I can connect with you and build a relationship with you through social skills, and you and I can work together to make good decisions. And that's how we get to peak performance in anything that we're doing.
That's awesome, man. So I know this was in one of the questions I sent you out, before preparing for this interview, but where do you think most schools are failing with regards to, the 5, aspects of EQ?
Yeah, I'll be real honest. I think where schools are failing is they're not empowering teachers. I just, my heart goes out to teachers because I just feel like they get blamed for so much. And if you're not in education, it's just hard to appreciate how incredibly demanding that calling is, and man, I would invite anybody that has a critical word, that's not an educator, that has a critical word for the teacher. Hey, dude, go substitute teach for a semester and then see what's up, exactly. Right? And then let's see what you have to say about those overpaid babysitters, right? So I think where the school system fails at large is they're not serving the teachers, right? Because I think that the best intervention for every student is a healthy adult. It's a healthy adult standing in front of the classroom, living out their calling with passion and purpose, right? So in the big picture, where the school system fails is they're not honoring the social and emotional needs of the educator. When you feed the teachers, all the kids benefit from that.
That's good. That's right. And it's tough to lead others when you can't even lead yourself at times, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want teachers to be pouring out from a full cup, not running on fumes,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research that says that the best SEL programs, the best social emotional learning programs in schools, they start with adult SEL, and I always say, like, you can't teach trigonometry unless you know trigonometry, right?
Exactly.
And don't try to teach me trig if you can't even balance your checkbook, right? Because you don't have the skills. And the same thing is true with social emotional learning. If I'm overwhelmed as an adult working with kids and I'm screaming at them and cussing at them and shaming them and blaming them, I can't teach them emotional intelligence. I've got to be able to know myself and regulate myself as an adult. And then I can have the platform to teach that to kids.
For sure. That's some great knowledge right there, man, because, you think about, like you said, you've done work in schools and, you're doing some work at the university level as well. And you think about, I've had the privilege to do, I've taught elementary. I was a bilingual teacher, and then my administrative work as an assistant principal was at the middle school level, and then now I'm teaching higher ed. But man, what I see is your enthusiasm, right? The enthusiasm that you bring as a professor, as a teacher, as an educator, the love, the passion, that's contagious. So you talk about that, right? So imagine if you're not right emotionally as an educator, and then you go into a classroom, like, they're going to pick up on that quickly. So I love what you said. We have to serve our teachers better. We have to provide that environment where they feel empowered and, hey, I'm here for you. And maybe you're having a rough day. Maybe you're going through something at home, because, hey, that happens, right? We go through situations in tough times, but how can I pour into you so you can pour into our kids? So that's great, man. Yeah. I love hearing that.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right. So the next question, then, again, let me pull it up. All right. So which phrase or section of the book are you most proud of?
The part I'm most proud of is the you mentioned this in the introduction, but the EASEL, EASEL, which is the online assessment that we have. I worked with my colleagues at Texas A&M and the College of Education because, remember those different aspects of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy. We thought, those are things that we can measure, those are very measurable things, and what we can measure, we can grow.
Okay.
So we thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if we created a test, a psychologist that measured those things that we can use to track growth in adults. So we did, we created this online assessment that measures those things, and we have teachers go online, they take our test, we get the results, and we use that data to create a growth plan for them of self-awareness, stress management, self-care. And we always tell teachers, I tell them, not only do you have permission, but you have a mandate to love yourself as well as you love everybody else around you. Be good to yourself, man. Be good to yourself. So that assessment, I'm super proud of, because I just think it's such a great tool to help teachers to do what they do.
Okay, awesome, very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What information did you have to edit out of the book? See, a lot of people, they don't really understand. If they've never written a book, they think, okay, everything that I write is going to make it. But sometimes, it's like making a movie, right? It hits the cutting room floor. So what is something that you had to edit out of the book?
Well, what's cool about the book is that, so I've written 3 books. The first book was The Power of a Teacher. The second book was Relationships That Work. And then this is my third book, The EQ Intervention. So The Power of a Teacher, I self-published it. And so what's good about it is that I had total control. Everything I wanted was in the book. Yeah. What's bad about it is that looking back, there's just a lot of cosmetic things about the book that I'm like, I kind of cringe at, because it wasn't as professional as it could have been,
Yeah.
So then with my second book, I went with a publisher. It was Routledge Publishing. It's a pretty big publishing house. And the book itself is really well polished, but they did that. They made me take some things out that I thought needed to stay in. So this book was, it's called a hybrid publisher, Greenleaf, out of Austin, the Greenleaf book group. And what was cool about that was I got the best of both worlds. I got to keep everything in the book that I wanted, but they took that content and made it look very polished and clean and professional. So I feel really good about the book because it covers everything that I wanted it to cover. I didn't have to cut anything out, and there's no compromising on the aesthetic quality of the book itself. So
that's good. So pretty much the message that you wanted, to convey
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out, and they just cleaned it up, right?
yep,
Okay, that's
yep.
good. And that's, my brother and I, we wrote a book about 4 years ago, and we, self-published, but we had an editor,
Oh,
and
good.
so when we got the editor and we read the final draft, after
Yeah,
we're like, okay, yeah, he got us, and he made it sound a lot better. So yeah,
good, man.
definitely.
Isn't it weird? Like, it's not until you've written a book that, like, once you write a book and have it published, every time you pick up a book, you see it through a different lens.
Definitely.
You realize what goes into it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And it blows me away to think of, like, think about the guys that wrote books before they were even typewriters, and they were literally like handwriting that. I mean, that's old school
Exactly. That's exactly. Do you
stuff.
do that, or do you? Because at first I would write on my spiral. Then my brother was like, because again we co-authored the book, and he was like, dude,
Uh-huh.
he's like, come on, man, you're doing double the work. Like, just use. And I don't know. I was so used to just
Yeah.
writing, like, like I was doing when I was in high school, just writing on a piece of
Yeah.
paper. So now
Yeah.
I'm more using on my laptop. But what about you in terms of
I'm
writing?
I'm straight to a word processor. I
Okay.
open up a Word document and I start typing away. But I know some guys that have written books, and they they talk it, right. So they'll have all their questions, and they'll put it in a dictaphone, and they'll send the audio file, to somebody to transcribe it, and then they get the Word document back, and then they just send that to the editor, and
Okay.
it's a pretty quick way to make a book.
There you
So,
go. I may have to do
yeah, yeah.
that. All right. So, what was one of the most surprising things you learned about in writing this book?
Surprising things I learned. I think really what surprised me was, social emotional learning is a kind of a catchphrase right now. It's
Yeah,
like the hot topic in education,
exactly.
and I didn't know it was when I started writing the book. I started the document, the summer of 2018 was when I started writing, and social emotional learning, it was sort of coming up, but I didn't know that it was going to be like the topic that it's been. So I think I'm surprised that the topic has taken the forefront that it has. I'm pleased, that there's a great audience, but I didn't realize that my book would be published coinciding with the topic itself being, taking forefront in education.
So,
So
why do you think it's hit that tipping point? Because I'm thinking about Gladwell right now, right? Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. So, there was
yeah,
something that made it come to the forefront. What do you think that was?
violence,
Oh,
school
really?
violence.
School violence.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
we're figuring out, like I said before, that when we look at kids that like and when I say violence, I'm not just talking about gun shootings. I'm talking about, like, cyberbullying. I'm talking about, all of the microaggressions, all of that stuff. We're figuring out that again, sticks and carrots. That's not how to treat that. It's through relationships. And so I think in education, we're really beginning to see, like, oh, we've got to be able to connect with these kids if we really want to shape their behavior. And we need to be social emotional learning is how we're going to do that. So I think people are beginning to connect the dots. And I started on this topic, probably in 2005, 2006. This was after Columbine.
Yeah.
And I first started writing about it, way back then, 15 years ago. And man, people are like, why are you writing about this, man? This isn't what we do in schools, and we're about science and STEM and, all of that. And then what happened was Red Lake and Newton, in Connecticut, and then Virginia Tech, and then Santa Fe, and then Parkland, and all these shootings. Over time, people finally began to get the message, like, oh, we need to be doing pro-social training with kids.
Mhm.
We need to be teaching them how to regulate their thoughts and how to regulate their emotions in ways that are healthy, so they don't have to resort to violence to express their emotions.
For sure. And,
But
as you say that, I'm thinking of, so I'm currently reading this book called The Social Animal by David Brooks. And in it, one of the parts that really stood out to me was, we send our kids to schools, and it's about preparing them to pass subjects like, math and, biology, whatever. But we don't prepare them for the important decisions of life,
yeah,
who you're going to marry, how to
yeah,
treat
absolutely.
others, just the real things about life. So I was like, that stood out to me, man. And as you were
Yeah,
talking about that, it's so true. It's like we're missing the whole point of education. And I get, learning math, and I get learning biology, but man, there's that hard aspect as well, right? And that's where we're
Absolutely.
missing. Yeah.
And there's more and more compelling research that's showing that the professionals who are most successful in their whatever the field is, whether it's math, science, arts, whatever it is, the ones that are most successful are not the ones that have the hard skills or the ones that have the soft skills.
Mhm.
You know,
For sure. Very good.
so it's a win-win, I
Definitely.
think.
Definitely. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So let me pull it up. All right. So in your words, let's say you have the power, right, to change education, right? But in your own words, what should education from kindergarten to higher ed look like?
I would say balanced,
Okay.
is the word that comes to mind. So we're balancing hard skills with soft skills. We're aggressively pursuing the instruction of technology, sciences, and we're aggressively pursuing relationship skills, social skills, self-awareness, self-regulation, stress management. That would be my thing. I don't think we have to have one or the other.
Okay.
I'd love to see both done very, very well.
For sure. Definitely. All right.
Yeah.
So,
And again, back to what I said before, giving ourselves permission as an institution to honor the adults and meet their needs as well.
that's good. I like that you
Yeah.
share that because it's so important, right? It's about the people who are in the forefront, and so many times, we're putting so many demands on them that it's like
Yeah.
we got to figure out, hey, are you okay first? Because if you're not
Right.
okay, you're not going to be able to take care of our kids.
Yeah.
So
No.
definitely.
Yep.
All right, so your book comes out in 2 weeks, right?
Something like that. This
The 20th,
January 21st.
21st. Okay, so 3 weeks. All right, already
Yeah.
almost there, man. So,
Yeah.
so where can
Coming
people
up.
where can people purchase your book?
Just go to Amazon and you can search it by my name, Adam Saenz, or just search it by title, The EQ Intervention. And it's up now for pre-sale, and then it officially goes on sale January 21st.
All right, very good. Also, where can people get more information about you? Perhaps about you coming out, working with their school districts, working with their schools.
Yeah, I'd love that. You can go to my website. It used to be my name, adamsaenz.com. That will forward to our new website, which is appliedeqgroup.com.
Okay. Will you mind telling the listeners what Applied EQ Group is?
Well, we are, it's the clinicians that I've been working with in our clinic. See, we have 25 mental health providers in my clinic in College Station. But even with 25 people, we realize, man, that we get 15, 20 calls a day for families that are wanting therapy for their kids, and we just can't see everybody. And it breaks our heart, So we started thinking, like, what if we could empower educators to meet kids' needs in the classroom? So we formed the Applied EQ Group, and that's the branch of our clinic that works with schools, training teachers to provide these emotional intelligence solutions to students. And we tell educators all the time, we're not trying to turn you into a mental health professional, but the thing is, you don't have to be a thoracic surgeon to perform CPR, and CPR can save a person's life. And you don't have to be a licensed psychologist to provide basic mental health intervention in a classroom, and sometimes just the basic mental health first aid, basic social emotional learning literally can save a kid's life. It could be the difference makers. And so that's what we want to empower educators with.
Okay, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
just allow me I want to ask this question. That's the thing. So many times, in education, especially me as a principal, I saw this, every August, they're like, what's the new thing, right? So you have Avid and you have, Marzano's, best practices, whatever. And so my fear, right, with this whole SEO, like you said, it's hit the tipping point. Like everybody's talking about it. You go on teacher Twitter, everybody has an opinion about it. And so, how do we make sure? I mean, what would you, just suggest to educators as they're looking for information? How would you make sure that, hey, you weed out the fluff, right? You weed out the stuff that's really not SEO, because again, what we don't want is just for it to be just another program, just another Band-Aid. We want it to be, hey, this is what we do on a daily basis. It is not, we don't just do it because it's a program. We do it because we know it's going to benefit us and it's going to benefit our kids.
Yeah. Well, it's like with anything, it boils down to leaders. What does the district level leader value? What does the campus level leader value? And what does the classroom level leader value? And so I would say in the best case scenario, you have a district level leader that values social and emotional learning and is willing to make a long-term commitment to it. But even if the district level leader does not, say the superintendent doesn't, at a campus level, the principal can say, well, on this campus, we value it. And so we're going to make a commitment. And so then you make your difference at a campus level. And even if at a campus level, if the principal's not down with SEL, doesn't value it, then at a classroom level, the teacher says, in my classroom, we're going to honor and respect each other. We're going to love each other and serve each other, right? So I would say to anybody working in education, ask yourself, where do I have power? Where do I have power? And let me exercise my power in my realm of authority.
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do with my college students. I was just thinking about that. I even got goosebumps as you said that. I tell my students, we put them in groups and cooperative learning, pairs, whatever, triads. And afterwards I say, hey, thank your partner. I say, because in my classroom, we practice kindness. So
that's awesome.
And that's what it's about, right? Just teaching them that, hey, that quick, just say thank you to your partner. And at first, these 19, 20-year-old college students are kind of like looking at each other like, no, in this classroom, we practice kindness. So
that's awesome, man. I love it.
Hey, Adam, thank you so much, man, for this is my first video interview, man. So I hope it went well, man. So
I'm honored, man.
Yeah, man. I'm honored and privileged that you gave me the opportunity to interview you. Great knowledge, great information, and I wish you the best. With your book and in 2020, I wish you the best, man, for Applied EQ Group and all that.
Yeah.
Hope to see you somewhere, maybe we'll run into each other somewhere,
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Well, thanks again. And appreciate you, happy New Year to you and your family. God bless. And hey, thank you again.
Okay. Take care, brother. Appreciate
you too. Bye-bye. About wraps up another episode of Mission Driven with AC Cristales. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Dr. Adam Saenz. As a reminder, you can purchase his new book, The EQ Intervention, Shaping a Self-Aware Generation Through Social and Emotional Learning, on Amazon.com. Also, if you want more information about Dr. Adam Saenz, you can go to appliedeqgroup.com. Let me say that again, appliedeqgroup.com to receive more information about what Dr. Adam Saenz does. Powerful, powerful work. So guys, again, I just want to thank you for tuning in to Mission Driven. I want to thank you for your support. And as always, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Or if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In fact, last week, I released my full keynote speech that I did at the AMIC conference in San Antonio, Texas. So the full keynote is up. Make sure you watch it. Make sure you like it. Make sure you comment. Make sure you share it with your friends, your other educators, and just let's keep spreading this message about living a mission-driven life. All right, guys. Well, as always, the mission is now. So remain mission-driven. Until next time, faith, hope, love.